What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Black Professionals Project. My name is Kenton Hipsher, and I am here with another beautiful young Black professional ready to take over the world one step at a time. But first, just to remind you, our mission is to educate and inspire Black and Brown youths through exposing them to careers via Black and Brown professionals. And with that, we will get it started. I would like to introduce Dr. Carter.
Hi, my name is Dr. Dominique Carter. I am a native of Chicago, Illinois. I currently work as an agricultural science advisor for the Office of the Chief Scientist at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. We're happy to have you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. And
Thank you.
I know you'll have a very interesting story to share with us about your professional journey. So the first question I want to ask you is, can you describe your ethnicity? And you already mentioned your hometown, but where are you currently working?
I am currently residing in Alexandria, Virginia, which is considered the DC metropolitan area. So I'm 2 minutes outside of City Center, or DC proper. Which is where I work.
Okay, gotcha. And then how would you describe your ethnicity?
I am African American.
Perfect. So walk us through what it's like in a typical day for you, as Dr. Carter. What's your typical day like?
Well, I would say the reason why I like what I do is that no day is typical and that no day is like any other. Maybe less so because of the pandemic, but normally I sit on various department committees for strategic planning as it relates to the science agencies at the USDA. I also sit on the evidence and evaluation department committee, again, as it relates to the science agencies at the USDA. And so I also work on briefings for the deputy undersecretary and serve as one of the points of science leadership and advisory for the deputy undersecretary for the research, education, and economic mission area, which the other title would be the chief scientist. And so my office is comprised of about maybe 8 to 10 science advisors and senior advisors, and we all advise based on our expertise in various areas related to agricultural research, education, and economics. So no day is the same, which is a good thing because you can't get bored. But overall, I would say my job covers science policy development, coordination of science activities as it relates to agricultural biotechnology and innovation, and strategic planning.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're basically the head honcho. You're the woman in charge of making these things work, trying to make sure they're efficient and making sure they're running the way that they should be.
That's right. And making sure that our operations are aligned with what we state as our science priorities, and trying to coordinate synergistic efforts across the department to make sure that there is not duplication of efforts and, enhanced collaboration as we move forward on seeing some of these science goals and priorities come to fruition.
Cool. So just to kind of give them a little bit of background, can you talk, maybe give like a brief explanation as far as what science policy is? Because that can be a very vague term for the average person, I think.
Sure. So as it has been explained to me, it can be described in a variety of ways. So there can, science policy can be described as science for policy, in which scientific findings of research are used to inform policy decisions. So, for example, research to inform new policies as it relates to healthcare management and or the funding of various types of science research, and or policies regarding, for example, the pandemic,
Mhm.
policies related to, how do we protect the public from major health issues such as this. So that's one example of science informing policy. And then on the converse, you have policy informing science. And that's what I would say, that primarily has to do with like how, one major example is budget appropriations, like what the government sets aside to fund science research. So that ultimately is policy, a piece of policy. Hey, the United States wants to put this much money toward quantum research. That's a piece of policy. And then from that, science funding agencies can then go on to develop science priorities for that agency to execute and see that to fruition. So that's how I would explain it.
I see. So you have a very important role in today's society, especially, but also in everybody's everyday life. So even though, you may think of policy as a bunch of glasses and suits and walking around with briefcases and sitting in boring meetings, you can see as an example here that, Dr. Carter can do really a lot of things. She's not just focused on that one area, but that is a big part of her role too. So, as we say here in the slang, she's one that can do both.
Get you one that can do both.
Exactly. So you already mentioned that the variety in your day-to-day life is something that gets you out of bed and makes you excited to do your job. But what are a couple other things that makes you excited to wake up and go tackle these challenges?
Well, I'm the youngest of 12, and I am the first one in my family with a terminal degree. And I have a lot of nieces and nephews and younger cousins that look up to me. And it's important to me not only to do the work for myself because I've worked hard to get to this point, but for them to also be able to see someone living their dream. I would say that is what I'm doing. I knew probably my last year of graduate school that my desire shifted from wanting to work in a lab. Given my own personal skill set and me having strong interpersonal skills, and me being able to be vocal and adaptable to a variety of environments, I felt like I could best utilize my training, my degree, as well as all of my other skills being entrepreneurial in the science policy realm. It was during that time where I say the science enterprise was really going through a shift in terms of a funding crisis. And so, opportunities for me at that time felt like looked bleak. There was only 13% of biomedical PhDs going on to professorship. So what happened to the other 87%? And so I'm just like, it was very bizarre to me that, this country thrives on innovation. So how is it that we have come to the point where we are almost to a point where we're divesting in research and innovation when that we already know, based on history, that is what has made this country what it is. And so the answer was policy. And I was like, I have to know about this. I need to be a part of the conversation. I need to be in the room. I need to be at the table. I need to bring my table to that table. And so me discovering and fueling that passion then is what continues to drive me now, and set new goals and accomplish those goals. So that's what I would say. I owe it to myself, but I owe it to those coming behind me as well. So yeah.
Wow, that's great. I mean, that's really one of the things that motivated me to start this project in the first place
Mhm.
was, trying to be an example for people of what's out there and what's capable. So I commend you and give you kudos for really seeing that in your own life and then taking the lead and stepping up to show people, I can do this and so can you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So the youngest of 12,
Yeah.
that's a lot of babies. I'm not gonna lie. That's a lot of babies. So
Yeah,
so how was your experience there, kind of growing up in Chicago, being the youngest of 12? That's a lot of people to keep track of and
I
have to
know. Well,
have to
my
manage.
parents had me much later in life. Like they were much older. I think my dad was 51 when I was born. I mean, he didn't look it. I mean, but yeah, and so it was really interesting in that like a lot of my sisters were more like aunties. Um, but now that I'm an adult, our relationship has transformed into more of like sister. They very much still have that kind of big sister protectiveness, but it's really interesting to see how relationships evolve over time as you mature, as you age. So yeah, but me being the youngest of 12 contributed to me being, pretty bossy and pretty assertive because I always had to assert myself. I'm sorry, you're not going to tell me what to do. No, I will tell me what to do. And so, I'm a very strong willed person. And I think, my family dynamics, me being the youngest, contributed to that greatly.
I can sympathize 100%. I mean, I have three or two older brothers, so there's three of us, and then my cousin who's a year younger than me, who also lived with us. So I was technically the youngest, but I also had to do the same thing because we have a 7 and 9 year age gap. So it's like,
Yeah,
I gotta stand my own ground here. I can't
that's
be.
right. You
I,
completely get it.
Exactly. I cannot be bullied like that. And my parents the same way. They're the youngest of 10 on both sides. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so our family is just a bunch of bullheaded leaders. So talking about that and learning a little bit more about your journey, tell us about your education, your academic track that you've been on, because it is quite the journey. So talk to us
Right, yeah.
about what got you inspired to do this in the first place and embark on this journey, and then what was
Mhm.
it like going through the process and actually completing it?
I would say I always had an affinity for science and math. I would say it started out with me loving math. I love math. It always came easy to me. I was good at it. My dad took notice when I was really young and tried to, I would say, develop that passion and develop that skill set. So we would do drills, and then we would watch like Discovery Channel and Discovery Health together, National Geographic. He also liked science, but he didn't complete college. He didn't um, get a degree, and so I just felt like he poured every single thing he had left into me. I was his last child, and so I ended up having my first summer research opportunity at the age of 14 at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago. I was able to do a summer research in the laboratory of Dr. Gabriela Shashabo, the biochemistry department. And that was my first time being introduced to tissues, learning how to pulverize tissue to extract protein, learning how to run Western blots to detect protein expression, PCR. I learned how to isolate DNA. I mean,
Wow.
I was really working my tail off that summer. That's really what kicked it all off because I got really good at it. I mean, and I didn't, I know, like that was my first time running, and they were just so shocked. Like it wasn't, how they have all those PhD comics where it's like
Hmm.
showing some plot of like a grad student versus a postdoc versus a research lab tech,
Hmm.
and showing how like the Western blots come out crappy via PhD program. I had the perfect Western blast at 14 years old, and I didn't even know, it was in where it was solidified that if I wanted to do that, that I could do that. And so I didn't know at the time how much that experience would mean to me and actually be a point of affirmation for me down the road when I was faced with challenges from peers as well as advisors and professors doubting my abilities when it came to being a researcher and also having the intellectual capacity to really ask like in-depth research questions. I've already done it. If I could do it at 14 years old, I damn sure can do it now. You know what I mean?
Certainly.
So that is when it started. And then I kept doing research probably every summer after that until I got to grad school.
Wow. That's really early.
McNair Scholar during college. So I did a year or a semester long research project in, met a cohort of students from universities in the area. And so I graduated high school, a high school diploma. And then I went to St. Norbert College, where I got a bachelor's degree in chemistry with the minor in biochemistry and mathematics. And then I went straight into a PhD program at the Medical College of Wisconsin University for microbiology, immunology, and molecular genetics. And it just so happened that my laboratory, my advisor's laboratory, was the only one in a bioengineering and biotechnology center. So I also have training in bioengineering.
Wow. You can do more than both. You can do it all. Really, that's really early to start. I mean, to be able to get in a lab at 14 years old alone is a gigantic hurdle. That usually doesn't happen until you're like in college. Very rarely does it happen in high school. So the fact that you're able to do that at 14 is really a blessing. And it's great that you were able to thrive in that situation. And then moving forward, getting your bachelor's and then moving on to graduate school is just success. And all that comes with, it's easy to say, but there's a very hard process. It's very difficult. It's not something that everybody can do. So I once again want to give you the props that you deserve for getting through that process, and not only getting through it, but being successful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely was not easy, but I would say it was worth it in the end. Definitely worth it, but there was some trying times. That's why it's things like this initiative you're starting. People can't be what they can't see, and they need to know that there are alternative support mechanisms and networks available if they don't have that in their immediate vicinity. If they don't have that at their institution, in their family or whatever, you can get that support from somewhere else, from people that look just like you.
Certainly, yes. It takes a village really to get through this process, because it's not one for the faint of heart. There's a lot of ambiguity, but there's also a lot of excitement. You're the only person in the world who knows that thing. Until you share it with the world, you're the only person, and that's very exciting. You're on literally the cusp of the world's knowledge. So with that, it's very exciting. Technically it can be challenging, and mentally it can be even more challenging, but it's worth it, I think, if you really have a strong passion for it.
Absolutely.
And you said you went to Medical College of Wisconsin, which is really, really cool, because I interviewed there for my graduate degree as well, for my PhD.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and I really loved it. I loved the school. I thought it was great, and all the people there are really kind, and it's really an interesting dynamic being so close to the medical school, that you have kind of a bigger community and more resources to get different inputs on the things you're doing, because at most state schools, the science is separated from the medical department. but there it's kind of intertwined. So you get that hands-on medical perspective versus, a state school where you may just be focused on the molecular side or whatever you are doing in particular.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So I know we talked about, some of the challenges that you faced. So can you share, specifically what are 2 obstacles that you've run into during your professional journey? That could be today, that could be through the process, or what have you.
One obstacle that I would say that I feel like is reoccurring at different and various stages of my journey is being underestimated. Underestimated with regards to my intellectual capacity and abilities, with regards to being able to execute science research, as well as even understand the implications of certain policies pertaining science that I'm trying to develop. And so it's a challenge because if not addressed, it can result in, one being underutilized and then ultimately becoming stagnant or stuck at a particular stage. And so I've developed, I would say, a mini toolkit as to how I can do this. I overcame that by, volunteering for projects, volunteering my input, volunteering to contribute or present for journal club, volunteering to work on projects outside of my immediate area of expertise so I can be exposed and also build up, and add to my skill set. And so there are mechanisms and there are ways, but it's still challenging because a lot of that is based on perception of me because of my skin color and because of my gender, and more recently because of my age. I am the youngest in a lot of rooms that I sit in now. And that can be quite intimidating at first. It didn't take me long to realize that I have just as much to contribute, if not more to contribute than many of my older counterparts. So, as I said earlier, I was raised in an environment that kind of molded me into this sort of woman that I am now. And I have no problem demonstrating that in professional setting. And so I would say, one, this is what advice I could give younger people that may be going through this and may not be able to articulate exactly what it is that they may be experiencing. You may be underestimated with regards to what people think you can and cannot do. And this is what I would suggest to them. One, never minimize yourself for the convenience of others. It's easy to make yourself feel small, to make others seem more important, and you think that may get you where you want to be. But actually, that could be to your detriment. So never do that. What's the point? We were all born to shine, so you should shine. Number two, it's important to identify and develop allies in your office and immediate work environment, but also outside. You never know how people are connected to who. And I've met a lot of people in senior leadership positions just by having casual conversations and not even realizing who they are until the conversation. So it helps to be social, but also, put some work into developing those type of relationships. And then thirdly, I would, seek mentorship opportunities, which can be a little bit more challenging for brown and Black people, but if there's a will, there's a way. And there's enough of us. I would say we have a critical mass, in all of the areas, albeit academia, private sector, government, wherever, where you will be able to find somebody that can connect you with somebody. And so
here,
see this resource here. So that I would say is like primary obstacle. And then something that's like tangential to that and related is, racism. I had one example that is ingrained in my brain to this day, because it's just, I still can't believe it happened to me, was like during my second year of graduate school, when you start taking the advanced graduate courses. I was taking an advanced protein chemistry course, and we had to decipher NMR spectra and determine the protein sequence from it. Now, I was a chemistry major, so of course I had experience from that in undergrad. And
Easy.
there, in the upper tier graduate courses, the classes are small. Maybe been like 10 of us, 12 of us in that class. The class decided to get a small study together of which was most of the students that were in the class. Of course, I was the only Black person and maybe one of few women. And I was like, we came up on a problem that had like all of these weird bonds. And, sometimes it's hard to determine like what kind of bond in the NMR spectra. And I was like, I have experience with this. This is how I used to do it in undergrad. And before I can even get my answer out, someone interrupted me and said, well, we shouldn't listen to her. She's only here because of affirmative action.
That's crazy.
And it's just like, it taught me two things in that moment. It did not matter how qualified I was to answer that question, what my background was, or the fact that I was just as smart or smarter than any of my peers in the room. The fact was that I would still be judged based on the color of my skin.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is unfortunate. And how I've learned to overcome instances of overt racism is, I don't know that I actually have an answer for that, because maybe not experiencing something as overt as that, but I still experience that to this day. I would say that maybe now I have the emotional intelligence and diplomacy skills to be able to politely but very explicitly state the policies of my company or organization where I work as it stands. Let them know that they can be reported and I can file a grievance or whatever the case. But then it was really kind of shocking and, very exclusionary for me. And, which I already felt isolated from everybody else because I was the only one. And that's just something I will never forget. And so, continuing to persist and continue in instances of racism, sexism, being underestimated, it's important to keep going. You cannot let anyone or anything determine what your future should be for you. You have a goal. You very much should execute it to the best of your abilities. So, if you experience something like that, my advice would be to report it, because nothing is going to happen if you stay silent. And, organizations are obligated to, act on retaliatory behavior. So if somebody tries to retaliate, they can get in trouble for that. So never be afraid to speak up for yourself. You have to be your own biggest advocate. That's what I learned from those experiences.
Those are great. Those are great nuggets of wisdom for anybody in any position. I think it's really tough that you have to deal with those things, and a lot of Black and brown youth have to deal with those things, but that's your reality. And I think as you grow and become more confident in yourself, you'll learn how to handle those things in the best way for you. And that's really what's important is your happiness and making sure that you are taken care of, and then following up on whatever it is that needs to be done. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you being transparent about your experiences.
Thank you so much.
Of course. So with that, I know there's a lot of different thoughts and different perspectives on, what it is a PhD or, even yourself does. So what would be one misconception that people have about your career?
That I know any and all medical jargon and fix any kind of medical issue.
Certainly, that's the biggest one, I would probably say.
Yes, because my training is in when it comes to infections, I probably do have a really good knowledge base for that. But if somebody comes and shows me that, hey, look at this rash I have on my arm, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I'm not.
I'm the other kind of doctor. The other kind. It's like when something goes down on the plane, don't call me. It's like I am not a physician. They are different.
Yeah.
I feel that. That's the same thing happens with anything in my family. They're always calling me like, hey, he's got some kind of, fungus or something on his foot. What do you think it is? And I'm like, I don't know. Go to the doctor. I could probably tell you what it is, but that's not going to help you.
Yeah. I can't tell you about treatment. Yeah.
Exactly. So I understand 1000%. So yeah, we've covered basically most of the questions that I have for you. The only thing that I want to ask here at the end is, what are a couple pieces of advice that you want to close on to, help these youth that may want to follow in your footsteps or at least pursue a career similar to yours?
Something that I always love to leave with young people that are interested in STEM is take up space. Don't be scared to take up space. Don't be scared to enter a lab with your love of trap music, you having different color hair, you having locks, having them dyed at the end. However you are, whoever you are, let them get to hold you. And like something I tell myself and I say to my friends, and they think it's so funny, but it's very true. It's like they're gonna get all this flavor. I am who I am, and who I am very much contributes to how I was able to persist and maintain and get this degree. So whatever that looks like, and whatever form that takes, you're gonna get all this.
Certainly. Talk about it. Talk about it. Come on now. Come on in here.
Don't be afraid to take up space.
Come on in here now. Shoot, I've been saying that for so long. It's like, look, I'm going to be who I am. You're going to have to take me for what it is.
It's so important. It's so important to bring full authenticity to the table. Because let's think about it in the converse. What good is it to you and to anybody else for you to try to behave in a manner that you think is compliant or will make you more acceptable? Number one, it's uncomfortable for you, and then it's uncomfortable for everybody else. I mean, some people are like, yes, he should be acting this way. Why? Why? You having to expend that extra brain energy on trying to be something that you're not to try to fit in spaces is just a waste of your time and a waste of your energy. Because guess what? As you mature, as you grow old, you're going to stop caring. So you might as well just be yourself now and focus on the task at hand, which is to accomplish whatever goal it is that you set out for yourself.
Okay. Preach. Talk to them. Talk to them.
As Meg would say, talk that talk.
I agree. And the one thing I want to point out there is you need to be 100% yourself, but also have the openness and understanding of your situation. You know, there's a difference between hiding who you are and being professional.
Yeah.
You can be who you are and still be professional. You don't have to separate those two things. And Absolutely. You just need to find the balance, because you can't be loving hip hop and everything at work. That's not something that most people would recommend.
I'm not saying that by any means, no.
Exactly, but you can still be who you are and true to you, and that's the real key. So with that, I want to close here. We want to thank Dr. Carter for coming on to our platform and sharing her professional journey. And do you have any closing thoughts or shout outs that you want to give to anybody at this moment?
I just want to say Shout out to the homies, the AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowship. I was introduced to a lot of phenomenal Black scientists, people who are now lifelong friends, and I'm very appreciative of that. And so shout out to them.
Wonderful. And so with that, I'm going to look to the camera as I always do and tell you guys to make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. And go ahead and hit that little bell so you get notified every time we drop something new. We will be dropping weekly, and we are alternating male and female. So we're keeping that gender balance and making sure that we can capture all of the audience that we possibly can. And please let us know, if there's any careers that you're interested in or anybody that you want us to talk to, let us know in the comments. And I will personally jump on LinkedIn and go hit them up and make sure that we get them on here, or at least someone in the same field. So thank you guys again. This has been another great episode of the #Black Professionals Project, and we are out.